We'll start. Good morning, everyone. I am not close to anyone, so I'm going to remove my mask. My name is Joe Cruz. I am the interim CEO for the Chamber of Commerce. And I want to, on behalf of all of the Chamber of Commerce staff and our board, I want to welcome you to the Better Business Summit and thank you for participating in this event. This is historic. In over 150 years of the history of the Chamber of Commerce, we've never done an event like this large, using technology and doing it in this manner. We are very, very grateful for your participation, and we hope that you find this conference valuable, and we look forward to interacting with you in the next day and a half. So I'm now going to turn it over to Ann Finch, who will introduce our opening speaker. Ann is the board chair-elect and also the CEO of LHI here in La Crosse. And we welcome Ann, and thank you very much for being with us this morning, Ann.
Ann, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you for that. I thought I clicked it, but I must have missed by a little bit. I think we've all gotten used to that unmute conversation. Thank you. So, and welcome to all of you. I do appreciate you all taking time out of your busy day to invest in yourself, to invest in our business community, and welcome to this inaugural Better Business Summit. We've created this event based on your feedback to gather you as the key members of our business community to share, to learn, to grow together. You know, being part of the greater La Crosse business community, we stand together through our relationships, with our resiliency. The deep bonds that we have stabilized us and will continue to stabilize us through these times of crisis. So I invite you today to step back, take time to engage while you're here. Consider this an investment in yourself as a leader, certainly in your business. Learn what's working with other businesses. I think it's so easy to focus on how you've always done things, what you're doing. And this is a chance to look beyond your four walls, whether they be your kitchen table or your basement these days, or if you're one of the lucky few that have been able to go back to the office. This is really a chance for us to ensure that we invest in ourselves and our business. Our future, our community's future, our business future really lies in our ability to envision and partner together towards a more vibrant, resilient La Crosse community. And to get us started, to get us inspired, to build some excitement for our collective futures, we have a great keynote speaker today, Curt Greeno, who comes to us as a co-founder of Dynamic Lifecycle Innovations and president. He's got a lot of responsibilities, but he's taking time out of his busy day to share the story of how they came about, the story of their rapid growth and success. Curt oversees the people operations, the accounting, the finance, the marketing, operational excellence, and he's got a special focus on financial performance. And I'm always thrilled to see this in anybody's description, and building a culture at his workplace, ensuring that it's a good work environment for his employees, and having a solid business strategy. What's even more exciting about Curt is 13 years ago, he was a recent graduate of our very own UW La Crosse. He came with a degree in business economics and finance, and he courageously left a job in banking to start an e-recycling company. Since then, not only has he been building that company, but he and his wife have grown their family to 5 children and have taken that startup idea of electronic recyclings into a full-service IT lifecycle management company who serves customers nationally and worldwide through its 2 geographic locations and extensive partnership network. So proud to hear that they've got annual revenues of $70 million, and they've got a workforce of 320 highly engaged employees who are lucky enough to work at a certified great place to work. So to share us the secrets of his success, I'd like to welcome Curt Greeno. Thank you, Curt.
Thank you, Ann, for that introduction. And thank you, Joe. Thank you, Maggie, for the chamber to give me the opportunity to kind of tell our story today. So a little bit about myself. As Ann said, my wife, Darcy, and I have been married for 16 years. We have 5 beautiful kids at home from 2nd grade to sophomore in high school. And I wanted to start maybe a little bit personally. And I think one reason for the success I've had in my marriage is because of aligned priorities. And for my wife and I, that's our faith first, family second, and then for me, business third. And the reason I share that with you today is that's the same aligned priorities. I think that's really been able to make my partnership with my business partner successful as well. Miles Harder, a friend from high school that we started the business with, which I'm going to tell you about today. We have those same priorities: faith, family, and business number 3. And I think that's critically important to have any type of successful partnership. So, so what I'm going to talk to you about today, I'm going to give a quick overview of Dynamic, kind of what we do and who we are. I'm going to share some of our history and then weave throughout there some of what I think has made us successful as a company, some of those key lessons and key traits that have made us successful, and hope that you're able to take a few things away today to take back to your business or just take personally back to make yourself better. And then we will have some time at the end for questions and answers as well. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to do a quick PowerPoint. All right, you should see the PowerPoint up there. All right, as Ann said, we were founded in 2007. We have 2 locations, Nashville, Tennessee, and Onalaska, Wisconsin. You can see our 2 facilities in Onalaska right there. The facility on the right, we just built that and moved into that about 3 years ago. We built that to help with our expansion of team members, and then also we purchased a shredding system, which you'll be able to see some pictures and video of in a little bit, to help facilitate our new shredding operation. So you can see there our square footage. We have about 320 team members, and as Ann said, we have about $70 million in revenue. So what do we do? In a nutshell, if I were to oversimplify it, what we do is safely, responsibly, and securely give electronics and electronic materials their next best life. So the ways we do that, we have 3 separate business units at Dynamic. We have our recycling and materials recovery business unit, ITAD, ITS at disposition, and then logistics. Really quickly, the recycling and materials recovery business unit, to again oversimplify it, we take any electronics or electronic material that needs to be recycled, that business unit handles, and then anything that we can reuse, our ITAD business unit handles. And I'll go in a little bit more depth in a little bit. And then we also have an internal logistics department where we have 15 to 20 drivers doing local box truck pickups, but also semi-truck pickups across the Midwest. So our standards, you can see we're certified to 7 external third-party standards. As I said, responsible and secure recycling is really important in our industry. So doing things the right way, we have a third party come into these 7 standards and just make sure that we're doing it. We're dealing with data security, data on hard drives, and then we're also dealing with some of the materials, the electronic materials contain hazardous waste or hazardous materials. So it's really important that those things are handled correctly. And unfortunately, competitors or other people in our industry don't necessarily always do the right thing. So having these third-party certifications is really important for our business and a value to our customers. So starting off, getting a little bit deeper into our different business units, in our recycling and materials recovery business unit, we do, part of that is legislative recycling. So what that means is all of us have TVs, computers, I was going to say VCRs, but probably not anymore, DVD players or Rokus at home. So when those things are broken or at their end of life, normally people will take those to a recycling center. We have La Crosse County Household Hazardous Waste or Harder's Quick Cleanup. You can take those electronics to. They consolidate those and then they send them to a recycler like us. So our legislative recycling business is really taking residential electronics out of the waste stream and recycling those. You can see there's a map there. Legislative compliance or legislative recycling in the United States, about half of the United States has state programs. These state programs mandate and legislate that OEMs have to pay for and facilitate the recycling of those electronics. So it's about 50% of the United States is covered, but it covers about 80 to 90% of the population. You can see a lot of the high population density states are covered with legislative recycling programs. So the other side of our recycling and materials recovery business unit is the materials recovery. And what this is taking, so in the recycling business, we're taking those TVs, computers, monitors, we're dismantling them into their component parts, and then we're either shredding them, sending them to our material recovery division, or we're sending them off-site further downstream to be recycled. So our materials recovery business unit, they specialize in those wastes, that scrap electronics. So they'll work with our recycling business unit and recycle those electronics. And then we also work with other businesses and other recyclers by buying their scrap. And then we either shred it in-house or we work with smelters all across the world where we'll send circuit boards and we'll be able to recover, the smelter recovers the copper, gold, silver, palladium, and other commodities from those electronics. So you can see some of our shredding operation there. And then a little bit, kind of a little dive deeper there, you can see high level what the shredding system is. And actually we'll show a video here in a minute to give you a flyover of what that is. So our shredding system will throw whole unit electronics in there. So those would be printers, stereos, VCRs, DVD players, any type of miscellaneous electronic. We'll shred it and then we'll mechanically separate all of those commodities from that whole unit. So you can see there we end up with steel, non-ferrous fines, plastics, copper and circuit boards, and aluminum. And all this is mechanically separated, and we do have team members that are pulling certain materials out of that waste stream as well. I have a video here to share with you.
Lifecycle Innovations is a leader in data security and electronics and materials lifecycle management. With our highly vetted global logistics network, we're able to get the job done right, anywhere on the planet. Through constant innovation and a dedicated team, we produce some of the purest material separation. This gives our processed material new life in the recycling stream, ensuring landfill diversion while delivering industry-leading value recovery to our customers. In all this, our mission is simple. We care about our people and our culture and the earth we live on. Our focus is to continue to develop sustainable methods of material recovery that treat this world with integrity and provide absolute confidence and trust to you, our customer. Think new, think different, think dynamic.
All right, hopefully that came back up for you guys. All right. My screen, I couldn't, moved on me there. All right, so that video kind of gave you an overview of our recycling division. Recycling and materials recovery, and our ITAD, IT asset disposition. In that business unit, it's more on the resale side. So we work with Fortune 500 companies, hospitals, universities, and when they're refreshing their assets, computers, laptops, every 3 or 4 years, they'll work with a company like ours to take those units. We do asset tracking. We make sure all the data is either erased from those computers using our own custom software, or we'll shred it in our shredding system. So no matter what, when that data enters our door, it doesn't leave the way it came in. We either wipe it or we shred it. So a big part of our ITAD division and something we've rolled out recently is our ability to service large customers globally. So you can see here the map. This is our global coverage. So you can see the red dots there. Those are our 2 dynamic locations. And the blue dots are all of our partner locations all across the world. So large Fortune 500 companies have this need all across their geographic locations. So we built out this partner network in the last couple of years. These are partners that we vet. Either we'll audit them, we'll travel to them and visit them on site, or we'll do desktop audits to make sure that they're meeting the same standards that we meet. And then we serve customers like in International Paper or a Dell. And Dell or International Paper will work directly with Dynamic. And then we work with our partners to pick up those electronics, make sure they're processed correctly. But our customer just has that one point of contact. They work with Dynamic and we're able to cover their needs all across the world and across the United States. So this has been a big key. I think this is kind of where the world's going, is that one-stop opportunity to really service a large customer like that across the world. So kind of moving on a little bit on the people side, here's our mission statement. So our mission is to improve the world through reuse and recycling by empowering our team members to better themselves, their families, and others. I'll dig into our mission statement a little bit later, but you can see there, I think one interesting thing with our mission is that the subject of that sentence is really about empowering our team members. It's not necessarily about the recycling or reuse efforts. Those are important, but it's really about empowering our team members, which is a focus of ours. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then our 6 core values. So we used to have 10 core values, and then throughout the years, we kind of whittled that down to really what are the few most important things. And if I were to whittle that down even further, really integrity, number 1, and then excellence through innovation, which you're going to hear a lot about in our history, are critically important to us as an organization. All right, so that was the PowerPoint, just an overview and kind of a what we do high level as a company. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history and some of the key lessons that we've learned over the last 13.5 years. So as Ann said, we started the company back in 2007. I was 23 years old when we started the business. So I was finishing up my economics and finance degree from UWL. I was working at a local financial institution, doing really well there, enjoying it. I was in the management trainee program and honestly just expected to continue to grow at Marine Credit Union, and I loved it there. It was great. But Miles, a friend from high school, had given me a call and offered up this business opportunity. So Miles and his family own Harder's Quick Cleanup, locally here in La Crosse. And Miles was in charge of handling those electronics. So you can take your electronics to Harder's, and then Harder's finds a recycling company to work with to recycle the electronics. And as he was looking around for electronics recycling companies to work with, he kept finding the same thing. A lot of them had terrible service and terrible pricing. It felt like they were gouging people, and he felt like there's a better way to do it. There's an opportunity in the market. So he went to a conference in the fall of 2006 and confirmed that he saw that business opportunity. So he met with me, and I think it was October of 2006. I still remember to this day us meeting in my kitchen, on our kitchen table, talking about the opportunity and what we could do. And I remember we drafted up our first business agreement. We had a blank notepad, wrote a few sentences down about what our agreement would be, signed it at the bottom, and that was kind of the beginning of Dynamic from there. So we officially opened business in January of 2007. And we had big aspirations. Like I said, we were 23 years old. I often joke, if we knew what we were getting ourselves into, we may not have started the business. But we were, ignorance is bliss, I guess. We didn't know what we were necessarily getting ourselves into. Today, we think we've made the right decision, obviously, 13 years later, but those first couple of years were really difficult, and we didn't really know exactly what our game plan was. When we started the business, we didn't have necessarily a written business plan. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that if you were to start a business, but we didn't have a written business plan. But one thing we were looking at as we started the business that resonated with us is that we read the book, Good to Great. And in that book, Jim Collins talks about, what can you be the best in the world at? So that's a question that Miles and I kept asking each other. What can we be the best in the world at? How can we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the competition and really kind of stake our flag on what we can do well? That's a really tough question to answer when you're 23 years old and you start a brand new business. So I can't say that we were successful answering that question at that time. But now looking back at the beginning of the company and then what's made us successful and separated us, I can tell you the answer to that question now has really been our passion for improvement, our focus on people, and our focus on doing the right thing, doing it the right way. More specifically, that passion for improvement, as I personally think about that passion for improvement, I like to think of it as a self-improvement loop, which starts with humility, curiosity, and innovation. So humility, being humble enough to know that you don't know it all and that you need to learn. Having a focus on curiosity, having that internal curiosity to ask why, to want to understand things, to reach out to other people and learn things from other people. And then that innovation happens because of those first two things, the humility, the curiosity, innovation, and then that loop starts right back over. And I can say, looking back, that's really what our secret sauce was that innovation, our focus on people and doing things the right way. And that'll be interwoven in the story that I tell today. So getting back to the business or the history a little bit, we weren't sure what we wanted to do. We changed our business model a few different times, but we did decide that we would do demanufacturing of electronics. So we were going to tear down the TVs, monitors, computers, and then sell the scrap. So one of the first things I did was, not knowing what to do, I visited a lot of other electronic recycling companies. So we thought about maybe just sending the material directly to them, or maybe we demanufacture it and then we send the scrap to them. We weren't sure, so I just went and tried to visit as many companies as I possibly could and to figure out what the opportunities were. And as I continued to do that, some common themes started to pop up, and that was, even though these companies were much, much bigger than we were, I was finding that everything that they were doing was very similar to the same things we were doing. So by visiting those companies, it gave me the confidence to say, we could do the same thing, and I think we can do it better than them. That wasn't arrogance, that was just confidence in knowing that we could continue to improve the process. So with that, we demanufactured electronics. That's what we decided to do. The recycling business is really, it's a penny business. We're making pennies per pound. It's a volume business. You need to bring in truckloads to really turn any type of profit. And so squeezing every single penny out of everything that you can is really important in that business. That worked well. Part of my background being in finance and economics helped in turning, understanding the financials and understanding what levers we could pull to really drive profitability and to drive performance into the future. So another key piece of the recycling business is, as I said, squeezing every penny out. So as we demanufacture the electronics, we end up with this scrap, and then we sell that scrap downstream. And it's a really disjointed downstream end markets in this business. So I remember Miles and I would, we both did this, we would constantly call and trying to mine new end markets. So we may have low-grade circuit boards, for example, that we're getting 23 cents a pound for. And by calling, pounding the phones and trying to contact other companies, we might be able to gain another 2 cents. So we might now be able to get 25 cents a pound for those circuit boards, which is a really big deal. That increased margin, and that really helped. So Miles and I would high five, we'd get excited. It was a big win. And then we'd say, okay, how can we get 27 cents a pound? What can we do next to drive more value even further? And that was in our DNA. is just to continue to get better every single day. Win, celebrate, and then how can we get better even tomorrow? And there wasn't really anything fancy to it. It was just kind of that continuous improvement loop all the way from the beginning. So as I said before, those first 2 years were difficult. Not knowing exactly what we were doing and figuring out on the fly. In that first year, we did $40,000 in revenue, and we lost $80,000. The second year in business, we made $200,000 in revenue and lost another $80,000. So 2 years into business, we were already $160,000 into the hole. We started the business with $100,000 as kind of startup money. We burnt through that. The owners put in another $50,000. We burnt through that. And we were starting at that point to borrow money from partners just until we could get things going. In that second year, we had to have a gut check too. About halfway through that year, I remember the owners, the four of us, sat down and had breakfast and really asked some serious questions about whether this made sense to continue as a business. And we obviously decided to continue that, but it was a real possibility. We didn't want to continue to throw money into it and not see that return on that investment. So I always like to tell that story to our team, and I think a company that's been successful, and we have, but it's not always pretty, and you got to have that grit and determination in the beginning. Another story that I always remember in the beginning is in that second year, again, we were losing money. And late in that second year, in the fall, winter of 2008, Miles and I decided to turn the heat way down in our offices on Green Bay Street. So I can't remember what the temperature was set at, but I remember working in a winter coat with gloves on. Typing is really difficult with winter gloves on, I'll tell you that. And it wasn't necessarily the money that we were saving. You know, I don't even know, maybe it was $50 that we were saving a month. It was the mentality. It sucked. It was cold. We were wearing winter coats to do our jobs. But it was the mentality. We got to grind through this. This isn't going to, it's not going to happen by itself. We got to really grind through it and persevere. And that's what we did. In year two, we really felt like we were starting to understand where we could play in the marketplace. And in year three, our revenue grew from $200,000 to $1 million in revenue in year three, and we made $160,000 in profit. So in year three, we were able to have that profit, and I was able to basically get to break even in year three and pay for those losses the first 2 years. And I'm privileged to say we've been able to be profitable every year since then, since our third year in business as well. So as I said throughout this presentation, the key thread was really excellence through innovation. It's one of our core values, and just getting better every single day. Another thing I'd like to, as I think about the beginning and what caused us success, was I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, and he talks about standards. So you don't always get your wants, but you always get your standards. And standards are, what do you expect from yourself? What do you expect every day? And if you have that mentality, if you set that standard and you meet that every single day, you're going to get that every single day. So I think just overall, early on and today, Miles and I have very high standards. Our team has very high standards on what we expect from ourselves and what success looks like. So I think that was another driving factor internally to help with the growth and success of the company. So as I told you, we have 3 business units today. We started in the recycling business, and we were mining those downstream markets, trying to get the best value for the material that we possibly could. And the birth of our other business units really happened through that continuous improvement loop. So that downstream market development turned into an opportunity to start our material recovery division. It didn't happen that way necessarily. We got a little lucky. I just got a phone call one day from another recycler out of Michigan, and he asked, do you guys buy scrap? And I can't remember what I said at the time, but we didn't buy scrap, but I said, well, we'll take a look at it. We'll offer you pricing. And we were able to start buying that customer's scrap. So we worked with that customer for about a year until we realized, like, hey, this is a business opportunity. So from there, we started calling our competitors and calling other recyclers and buying their scrap. So we buy the scrap, mix it with our scrap, sort it, bale it, and then send it downstream. In all honesty, it kind of boggled my mind that we were able to buy scrap from our competitors, when they could be sending it to the same downstream vendors that we're sending it to and get the same value. But again, I think we were just hungrier. We were more persistent looking for those end markets. Our ITAD division, our resale division, kind of started with a similar story. We had some computers in the warehouse, and my brother, who was a driver working for us at the time, he saw the computers sitting over there, and he asked Curt, "Hey, can I take these home and try to sell them online?" And I said, "Sure, why not? It's just a little bit of scrap, maybe a couple $100." So about a month later, I checked back in with Vince and asked him, "Hey, whatever happened with that scrap that you took?" And he said, "Hey, I was able to sell it for $2,000 on eBay." So we took $200, $300 worth of scrap, and we were able to get $2,000 worth of resale on it. So we immediately said, "Let's get you off the truck. We need to get you into the office and figuring out how we can sell more of these electronics." So at the time, the electronics that we were bringing in were coming from residential sources. So a very, very small percentage of those materials were actually resellable. So as we grew and through time, we started to go after businesses that we could service with data security services. And then also those assets were worth a lot more value. And I had a lot higher percentage of resellable electronics in there as well. Our logistics, our third business unit, was really born the same way. We started with one box truck picking up customers' accounts, and then we've grown it to a fleet of about 15, 20 to 25 trucks that we service our customers. And then we also do third-party freight for other businesses as well. So just continuing to add on throughout the years, just that continuous iteration process. So one other piece that I learned early on that really allowed us to be successful was that the recycling industry was changing very, very rapidly. The materials are changing. Recycling hasn't been around a very long time. So it was changing rapidly. And what I found was a lot of our competitors weren't changing with the times. I think they had gotten fat and happy on high prices and bad service and still being able to be around because there wasn't a lot of other business. But it was a growing industry. Recycling is a growing industry, and it was changing really, really, really fast. So some of those older recyclers, they ended up going out of business after a period of time because they weren't able to evolve. They had gotten slow and fat and happy, like I said, and set in their ways. And we continued to innovate all the time and get better. They were better than us when we started, but we were able to surpass them throughout a number of years. So a key lesson that I learned there was, and is as relevant today as it was back then, is you've never really arrived. I truly believe it's never, when you reach that mountaintop, it's just there's another mountaintop on ahead of you. And as soon as you think you've arrived, as soon as you think you've kind of accomplished it or you've reached the top, that's when the downfall starts. So in my mind, I'm always thinking we can't let complacency set in. As soon as we do that, I mean, what's the next dynamic? What's the next small upstart company that's gonna take away business? So just never get complacent. And I think the more successful you are, the harder that is to do. And that's something we're continuing to try to battle every single day. So I talked a lot about kind of innovation and growing the business through continually improving it. But another thing that we focused to really scale the business and grow the business, we really needed to focus on people and culture. And that was something in Nate and Miles and I that we were passionate about. And really to build a company and to scale a company with people, Miles and I believed very strongly that it started with the two of us. We had this idea, John Maxwell talks about this idea of the leadership lid. And that says, if I'm a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, if I'm a 5 as a leader, I'll never be able to hire anybody higher than a 5. If I do hire someone higher than a 5, if I hire a 7 or an 8, they're probably going to get frustrated working for us because they're not getting the leadership that they're looking for. So Miles and I were very passionate in the beginning about never letting dynamic be held back by us. Nobody's untouchable, and that Miles and I really create the ceiling for the company. Whatever Miles and I's ceiling is what the company's ceiling is. So we focused really strongly on improving ourselves, improving our leadership, and we never wanted our abilities to be the limiting factor to the growth and the success of the organization. So obviously, we can't do it ourselves though. So really, that's where we turned our focus on people, leadership, and building systems around that. So I'm also a big fan of Dave Ramsey, and I was listening to his radio station one time, and he talked about this book, EntreLeadership. And I read the book, and as I read the book, it just really tied everything together. There's a lot of things that Miles and I were doing in the business that that made sense. We were reading books and kind of connecting it together. But when I read that book, EntreLeadership, it really tied the whole business together, and everything that we read in it was just exactly the way that we wanted to run our business. So I went to an EntreLeadership Master's Series, a week-long series to really do a deep dive into the book and some of those practices. And as I came back from that week-long Master's Series, I thought, you know, that's great that I went to this, but how are we going to translate this to other people? How are we going to translate this to our other leaders? So I came up with the idea of every Tuesday, we called it Tuesday Leadership. This was back in 2010, and we still have this today, 10 years later. Tuesday Leadership from 7 to 8 a.m. every Tuesday. I taught one of the lessons from the EntreLeadership Master Series. So I taught a chapter on people, I taught a chapter on sales, we taught a chapter on accounting, all of these different business things to try to grow our next levels of leadership. And that was kind of the first way that we really started to institutionalize continuous learning, improvement, leadership into the company. And now we use Tuesday Leadership even today to bring in speakers and to do book club and other things to continue to grow leadership, to make sure that leadership lid is increased all the time. So early on in the business, it was relatively easy to have kind of common beliefs, common practices. When you have 20, 30 people, Miles and I can touch everyone, and they see us and they hear us every single day. But as we continue to grow as a company, we realized very quickly that we're going to have to put this down on paper to really be able to scale it, and for others to make decisions the way that we want them to make it. So that was really when we sat down and created our mission statement and our core values. I shared our mission statement. Our mission statement is to empower our team members to better themselves, their families, and others. And so that's a little bit of a unique mission statement. It really focuses on the team member, and that's something Miles and I were really passionate about. And we live that today. And then our core values, when people talk about culture, it's kind of a buzzword. A lot of people talk about culture. When I think about culture, I think every company has a culture, whether they like it or not. It's just a matter of whether you've taken the time to deliberately define what you want your culture to be, or whether you're just going to passively let your culture be what you want it to be. So from the very beginning, Miles and I felt strongly, and actually, if we go back, I can't say that we chose culture as a strategy or said, hey, we're going to be good at this. I think it was something that was just in our DNA. We really care truly and deeply about people and doing the right thing and treating people right. So it came naturally to us. And then as we read books, and that really helped solidify what a culture was and how we needed to grow that. So one of the ways that we define our culture and grow our culture is obviously through our core values. Our core values is really, it's how we made decisions in the beginning before they were written down, and it's how we want people to make decisions today. So those core values, we've institutionalized them in the company. They're not just a poster on the wall. We do have posters on the wall. They are on the wall, but we do it. It's part of our hiring process. It's part of our review process. We have a core value spotlight program. So they're really interwoven into everything we do as a company. Some other unique things that we do as a company to really help engage and to promote our culture. We've invested heavily in our HR team, which we call people operations. We understand that that is a strategic investment in our future. So we've invested heavily there to really help with our culture strategy. We've invested in a learning and development department. So that's something not a lot of companies our size have, is a learning and development department. But in order for us to continue to grow, one of our limiting factors, we believe, is going to be people and leadership. So that was really our way to continue to grow and cultivate leaders. And to put it over simply, the way I think about culture and people is if you create a great place to work and you hire really great people, it makes the rest of the business just a lot easier. As simple as that sounds, it's a lot harder to execute, obviously. But if you do those things, two things really well, it makes everything else easy. And I'm encouraged. I talked to new team members about 4 months after they've come on to Dynamic. And a common question I asked them is, what surprises were there? You went through the interview process and you came on board at Dynamic. What surprised you? What was different than what you were expecting? And one of the most common answers I hear is, it really is what you say it is. And this isn't coming out of my mouth. It's these team members. So I think we walk the walk, and that's really our leadership and our team. And we're really diligent about doing what we say we're going to do. And that causes that internal focus on people and innovation, in data and analytics. It causes us to be on the flip side, on the negative side, it's caused us to be a little too internally focused as a company. We're really focused on our processes, on our people, and on our data. And in some ways, we've needed to, over the last few years, really shift our focus and understand what does the customer want, and we serve the customer well, but what are really those solutions and services that they value the most, and really looking externally as well. So you can err too much on that side, which I think we've done, and we're starting to transition out of that, but still have focus on our team. So just a couple of last key lessons as I thought about the last 13 years and what's really made us successful as a company. And also, as I looked at some of our failures, what are those common threads that the successes and failures bounce off of? And I have two final kind of lessons I'd like to share. The first one is the idea of fire bullets, fire bullets, then cannonballs. This is a Jim Collins theory or practice as well. And the idea is you fire bullets, fire little shots, little test runs before you go big. So and that's proven to be successful in our company. As I told you, the story about how we grew the scrap division, that wasn't a strategic initiative, actually. It was, we kind of lucked into it a little bit, and then we just dabbled in it, and we grew it, and we invested in it as we understood it and knew it. And so that's really been a key to our success. And as I look at one of our biggest failures, I think it describes that really well as well. One of our biggest failures, we acquired a company in the Twin Cities. It was an offshoot of our ITAD division, business unit. And the company in the cities, they had about 20 team members, 20 employees. And the owner of that company was a bit of a tyrant. He wasn't a good leader. And we thought one of the sales managers that we were interacting with kind of helped us with the business acquisition. And we thought by buying the company and instituting our values and our culture, we'd be able to turn the business around and really make it successful. And we bought the company, and what we found was the culture was so different than ours, and we had just bit off way more than what we could chew in understanding the business, trying to change the culture, and really, in some ways, we just got a little bit arrogant. We had been successful, and we thought by buying the company, just through osmosis, we'd be able to make that successful as well. And we weren't able to do that. We ultimately had to close the location in the cities. We brought those operations back to Alaska, but that was a key learning lesson for us in that idea of fire bullets, then cannonballs. Try little things first, and then slowly increase your investment as you figure it out. And then the last thing I think that really kind of defines our culture, defines our company, is the importance of velocity and simplicity. We move really fast. The world moves really fast, and I think it's only moving faster. We've all learned that through COVID, how plans get thrown out of whack daily, weekly. But that's one thing from the beginning, is we've always we moved fast. We always focused on moving fast, and it's just something that we do. So one of the ways that we institutionalize that is through our goal setting process. We set traditional annual goals just like every other company, but we use a process called OKRs, objectives and key results. And with that process, every professional individual in the company also has quarterly OKRs, personal goals that they set every quarter. They prioritize them, and then we grade them So we assess progress on them, and then we reset the goal in the next quarter. And that's really allowed us to increase our innovation, increase our iteration, because we're able to do quick wins, understand where we're at, reprioritize as the world changes, while also looking at our annual goals. But that's been another great tool for us, something that Google has made famous and we've implemented at Dynamic. But the importance of velocity and simplicity, keeping things as simple as possible. If you want to scale the organization, complexity is just it's going to cause massive problems. We're not going to be able to grow, or any business is going to be able to grow without making things simple. But simple is hard, as well, as silly as that sounds. Complex is easy, simple is hard. It takes, sometimes it takes, you need to make it complex and then you need to simplify it. So it's always been a focus of ours as well. So, so some of the key things that I shared with you today is really what's made us successful in the past, I think is going to continue to make us successful in the future. We need to continue to change, but a few key things is innovation, our focus on people and culture, and then our focus on doing things the right way has made us successful up until this point, and will continue to, I think, lead to our success in the future. So thank you for your time. I think we have about 13 minutes or so for questions.
Curt, thank you very much for your presentation. I thought it was just fascinating. So interesting hearing about your journey. I was here in town when you started and worked at Mayo, and I know we became a customer of yours. I'm assuming they still are. But it is really a great story, and you did a great job explaining the history of the company and those core values. I have one question I wanted to ask, or that kind of came to mind as I listened to your presentation. One of the issues that we hear a lot from businesses is the challenge of workforce, hiring the right people, the right talent, and keeping them here in this region. Would you mind talking a little bit about how you've maybe dealt with some of the hurdles of hiring a good workforce, and perhaps some of the some reasons for your success in recruiting and retaining good folks?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been a hot topic, I think, in the last few years, the war on talent and the lack of talent, just the numbers of people. So as I said before, it's oversimplified it, create a great place to work and hire great people. So that second piece of it, hiring the great people, is an important piece. So we've made a strategic investment. Again, I think for the size of our company, we have a talent acquisition director and we have a talent acquisition partner as well. So we've spent a lot of time and energy in our talent acquisition process. I find it interesting as I think about bringing new people into an organization. You want to hire the right person, and then hopefully that person, they're going to work for you for 2,000 plus hours a year, hopefully for many years to come. But so many of the talent acquisition or the recruiting processes, you only have an hour or two interaction with that person. So our process is really robust. For some levels of positions, we have 3 rounds of interviews. We do multiple types of assessments. We go out to lunch with the candidate. We have a final meeting with the candidate to discuss it. And we really view it as a two-way street. The candidate needs to be comfortable working for us, and then obviously vice versa. So we've continued to evolve that process, and we've made it as scientific as we can. We identify, so a couple of the things that we do specifically are, for each role, we do a debrief with the hiring manager to really understand what exactly are you looking for. So we identify the top 5 attributes that we're looking for in that candidate. And then as part of the interview process, those questions are specifically asked throughout the interview process. So we have 2-person interviews. We do 3 rounds of interviews typically. And then after each round, we bring everybody together and we talk about those attributes. We debate, what's a good fit. And that hiring manager is a part of it, but it's really like a team decision along with that. So we've built a talent community. We try to be proactive and understand what the jobs we are searching for in the future, and try to kind of get people into Dynamic or let them know about us even before positions come posted. So yeah, I think overall we've put a lot of time and attention and tried to make that process as scientific as we possibly can through numbers and data and analytics and questioning. So.
Thank you. At the bottom of the screen, there is a question and answer tab, and I'll just read one of the questions for you, and then maybe you can respond to it. Very inspirational story. This is from Callie. Very inspirational story. Thank you for sharing. In the beginning of starting the business, when you experienced the greatest amount of challenges and uncertainty, what helped you persevere the most?
That's a really good question. I think having Miles and I so closely aligned in what we believed and how we wanted to run the company. I think that was one thing. We really fed off each other. I think some days were tough and you're down, but when you have a business partner or somebody else that you're working with towards that common goal, I think we really built each other up. And like I said, we high-fived each other and we celebrated those wins. And they may have been few and far between in the beginning, but I think that's part of it, is really that partnership that we had and continuing to look for wins, continuing to look for those wins and celebrate those wins. Confidence, I think, is so crucial in that if you get too down on yourself or too down on the business, it becomes a negative downward spiral. So I think having the confidence, even if you know you don't have it all figured out, you need to celebrate those little wins and then just keep getting better every single day.
I before you even answered it, I was thinking that was kind of the nugget that I've picked up from your presentation, is that early on, that agreement that you and Miles sat down and put together created a foundation for your partnership. And of course, Miles is as you are, high energy person. And my impression of him is he's very positive. He's very upbeat. You are as well. So I think that probably had a lot to do with that perseverance that the two of you both have. We have another question here. This is from an anonymous person. It says, in a high growth environment, what's the biggest challenge that you had to learn to overcome?
There's all sorts of challenges, no doubt about it. I think what we've experienced now to where we're at today, it's what we've really focused on is working on the business as opposed to in the business. I think that's one thing that Miles and I were able to be successful in, is that we were always so interested in how can we better run the company. So I think that was the biggest challenge, and the biggest opportunity for us was really just how can we scale it? How can we create systems to create repeatability? But the challenge was, it was always changing so fast, and we had to get the next level of leadership. And that's why I think having that people focus was so important, is because as you grow as a company, and if you double your staff, getting those next levels of leaders to buy in, and it wasn't easy. We obviously made lots of mistakes, and we learned from those mistakes. So I would say the biggest challenge to overcome was learning how to manage the company. Managing the company at 30 people and at 60 people and 150 people changes. You got to do it differently. There's some key things that stay the same, but you got to do it differently. So I think it was that we saw it as a challenge. We liked it because we love learning how to better run a business, but that was probably one of the biggest challenges.
You know, one thing that impressed me as I listened to you talk, Miles, and maybe you can comment on this, it seems like one thing that was part of your culture is sort of the freedom to make some mistakes. And I think Jim Collins and other writers have talked a lot about that. I was impressed with that. You talk about mistakes and you learn from them. Not all cultures allow that. And I think that's really a great strength of your organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're kind of running up on the end of our time. I want to thank you one more time for your presentation and for the time that you spent with us. I would like to mention to our participants that at noon we have Joan Myers from Gensler presenting to us, and we ask that you stay with us and participate and continue your participation. And we look forward to Joan's presentation in about 3 minutes. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.